The password is... When you first get into a Cisco device, you might be surprised that you can just get right in and get to configuring. It shouldn't stay that way. There should be some level of security that we introduce, and there's the option for that on so many different levels. This is a list of just some of the passwords that Cisco has put in place for us to make sure our devices are locked down. But rather than just talk about them on the slide, why don't we head over to the live equipment over here and start configuring, and I'll explain as we go. All right, so I'm going to get reconnected to the Cisco 1921 console port connection and hit the enter key a couple times, see where we are. There we go. Got our logon banner still on there. I'm going to get into privilege mode, and that is our first problem. One of the big differences between user mode and privilege mode is what is allowed to happen. In user mode, you can only view very basic stuff. There's not much you could do to actually cause damage to the router. Once you're in privilege mode, you have full access. So there are actually two ways to secure this. I'm going to go into global configuration mode. If you think back to the modes, we always start user mode, privilege mode, now global config mode. This is a global setting, and there's actually two ways that we can do it. The enable secret and the enable password. Now, looking at the descriptions, it looks almost exactly the same. Assign the privilege level secret and the privilege level password. This is actually primarily for backwards compatibility. A long time ago, like when dinosaurs ruled the earth, Cisco said, we're going to have this enable password to protect the privilege mode, but it wasn't encrypted in any way. So it was clear text, stored as clear text in the running config. Then they came out with the enable secret, and that allowed you to have privilege level encrypted password. It's technically hashed. I'll show you the difference. So I'm going to type in enable password. Let's just do Cisco, right? Exit back out of here. Do a show running config. Watch this. Right there. Enable password Cisco. I'm going to hit Q. If someone's looking over my shoulder, they know exactly the password to get on, although Cisco's probably not the best password to choose anyway. So I'm going to type in enable secret Cisco. It's probably going to give me an error message. Yep, notice it says the enable secret you've chosen is the same as your enable password. This is not recommended. Re-enter the enable secret. Now, my question to you is, did it ever say on there that it didn't take the command? No, I'm looking. Looks like it just says re-enter it. So if I exit back out and do a show running config, notice there it is. Enable secret 5. Blah, 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 blah. By the way, this little 5 is the command that says, hey, there's a hash version, an encrypted version that will follow this. Now, so it's working. Now, it's saying, wait, you shouldn't do this because essentially somebody could see it, and that's the same version as the encrypted one. Okay, so this is going to prompt a whole series of questions. If I type in enable secret, let's just say Cisco 1, no error message. Okay, that's good. I'll go back and do a show running config. I can see the hash is completely different than the version we had sitting right here. Enable password Cisco though. Okay, what's this do? What is the end result? Is there two enable passwords? Well, let's find out. I'm going to type in disable, and you're going to have to trust me here. I'll type in enable, enter. Notice now that we have the privilege mode being password protected. If I type in Cisco and press enter, it's not accepted. It's not taking it. Essentially, enabling this or turning on the enable secret disables the enable password. Even though it's still in the running config, it won't work. If I type in Cisco 1 and press the enter key, I'm in and I get to the privilege mode. Now, so I know it's kind of like, well, why is that command still there? What's the part? I almost want to just say shove all of those into a big cave and roll a rock in front of it. Nobody uses the enable password there anymore. It's only there for backwards compatibility. Like if you copy the configuration from an old router and paste it into a new router, it'll still take the command. At least it gives you some level of protection of the privileged mode, but nobody uses it. So the best thing to do is never to enter it in the first place. Type in no enable password. If you did, it's gone. I'm going to change the enable secret to Cisco and make that the same for all of our devices here. My session timed out, so I'll get logged back in again. I'm going to go back and do that show running config command. And I'm going to plant this seed now, and you're going to hear me say it again and again and again throughout this whole skill. This output is literally the commands that are entered into the router. As in, if you wanted to back up your router, all you have to do is copy and paste all of this list of commands over to a text file, and then if the router ever exploded, you could just paste it all back in, and it would take those commands, right? So I'm going to come down here, right here. Notice all these lines. There's line con 0, which represents the console port. Line aux 0, which represents the port on the router that is kind of similar to the console port. Man, I got to get some light over here. Here we go. Right above the console port, you can see the aux port, and that's typically used for connecting a modem or some other emergency backdoor into the router. Not usually used in most environments. And then we have the Vty lines. This is an interesting one. It says line Vty 0 space 4. What is that? The Vty actually stands for virtual terminal. This is your ports that allow you to access the router remotely via telnet or SSH. Now notice a couple things here. One, it says login. That command says logins are required to this port. Notice that command does not exist under the console and aux port. That means that I can access those ports without logging in. So having that login command actually secures the router in itself, and there's significance in it being under the Vty lines by default. What do you think that is? Think about it. There's a login command under the Vty line. It requires logins, whereas console and aux ports don't require logins. That's why we've been able to jack right into the console port and just access the user mode of the router. The beauty of having the login command right underneath the Vty ports is that it's going to require a login. But okay, so what password is there? Well, there is none. We haven't entered a password under a Vty line. So this is requiring a login, but there's no password. So what does that do? That means if somebody tries to access your device remotely, it's going to give them the message, and I quote, login required, no password set. Boom, disconnected right there. This being under the Vty line is actually really good because it keeps people from getting into your device before you have the opportunity to configure it all the way. If there was no login required, matter of fact, let's do that. I'm going to type in line Vty 0 space 4. Okay, whoa, before I go there, why did I do 0 space? What is the 0 for? That is the start and end port. So if you see the first line number, space question mark, last line number, 4, by default, the Cisco devices allow up to 5 concurrent SSH or telnet sessions at a time. You can see this iOS allows up to 1,300 concurrent some telnets. You would, oh my goodness, you would never have that, but they're giving you the flexibility to have that many. This configures all 5 ports, 0 through 4, all at the same time. If I were to type in no login, it would literally remove that. Matter of fact, let's go back and do a show run and config. And scroll down to the bottom, you'll notice that the command now shows no login, right? Which means somebody could telnet or SSH to my router, and bam, they'd be sitting right at user mode, no password required. As it stands, I'm going to type in line Vty 0 space 4, require a login by typing in login. Oh, what a great message. Login disabled on this line until you set a password, right? That makes sense based on my explanation, right? Password, and we'll just keep all the passwords Cisco for now. Enter. Now, when people try to SSH or telnet to my device, it's going to prompt them for a login. It's just going to say, what is your password? And they have to type in the password of Cisco in order to obtain access. Now, common question that I've had when I show this is, could I just type in line Vty, hang on, let me get right here, 0 and set a password, then line Vty 1 and set a password, and line Vty, you know what I mean? Could I set different passwords on each telnet port? The answer is yes, you could, but oh my goodness, you would never want to do that, because when you telnet in or SSH into this device remotely, you have no idea which line you land on. You just get the next one in order, right? So you'll never know which password you're going to need for that specific port. So it doesn't pay to set different passwords for different ports. That's the Vty password, console password, and user account. Here's how it works. We've already seen this section called line con 0. If I exit out of here and go line con 0 and type in password Cisco, we assign a password to that console port. Matter of fact, let's go back here and do a show run. Oh, hang on, I have to sneeze. But through the power of video editing, you never heard that. I'm going to do show running config, scroll down to the bottom, and look at this. Line VTY 0 space 4, password Cisco, clear text, yikes, we might have to change that. We'll do that eventually. Line console 0, password Cisco. Okay, great. So what does that mean? It means if I exit out, and now I'm sitting there, it's as if I just plugged into that console port. Missing my lights again. So I just plugged into that console port. I come back over here, press the enter key. What? Huh? What? Okay. Privilege mode required a password. I thought that I would get a password right here before I just ended up in user mode. Hang on, let's do a show run. What is missing? What is missing from this console port? It's got password Cisco. Right? We can put a password under there all day. But if we're not requiring logins to that port, let's go back and do a show run, verify that took. Yeah, now let's give it a try. Exit back out. Console is available. Hit the enter key. And now it's prompting me for a password before I even get to user mode. Then a second level password when I get to privilege mode. Awesome. Last piece is the user account passwords. And I'm just going to show this to you at this point, meaning the user account passwords bridge into other topics, primarily, just a lot of stuff. It's essentially creating a user database on your Cisco device, username and password. Imagine the things you could use that for. You can use it for remote access, like, telnetting in or SSHing into your device. But you could also use it for VPN access. You could use it for different levels of restrictions, like that user can do this user can do that. There's all kinds of stuff that you can use it for. I'm just going to show you how to create user accounts at this point. We'll talk about how to implement them, like require them and use them in later configurations. Check this out. If I go back into global configuration mode, I can type in the command username followed by whatever the name I want. And it's not case sensitive, at least on the name portion. So I could put Jeremy with capital J and not have to remember it's a capital. And then I hit question mark. And this is why I'm saying it leads to all kinds of different things. Like, yeah, you can just see the list of commands. The big one that I want to point out is password and secret. This is the same thing as the enable password and the enable secret. If I type username Jeremy, password Cisco, for example, it'll give that password to me. That'll be my password to log in, but it'll be stored as clear text in the running config. I'm very likely to use a secret. So I'm going to type in username Jeremy, secret, let's just say Cisco, right? Now, something I want to point out, I know some of you are like, well, what's all this? So remember when I said in another video, I said, anytime you see line, it's kind of free form, like type whatever you want. So I typed in Cisco because that was one of my options. And that will default, hang on, let me go back here and do a show run. Let's find my username right there. Username Jeremy, secret. Look what the iOS did. 5 blah. Scroll back up. 5 specifies a hidden secret will follow. Interesting. So here's what this means. Remember I told you the running configuration is literally the commands. You can just copy and paste it in, and it will take it. Look at this. If I take this line right here, copy it to my clipboard, go back into global configuration mode, I can paste that right in, and it takes the command. Because what it's saying now, remember, look at this. It says, if I put the number 5 there, when I say username Jeremy, secret, if I put 5, that specifies a hidden secret will follow. Well, look right here. What do I type in? Username Jeremy, secret 5. That sure looks like a hidden secret to me, right? It tells me that I'm typing in the encrypted version of this. That's not literally the password. I don't log in as Jeremy and type in $1, $any, that's the encrypted version. This is what tells the iOS to expect that encrypted version. That's how you create user accounts on your Cisco devices. Now, again, the uses of those are huge. You can use them in all sorts of places. I'm just planting that seed right now. We have now walked through the commands needed to properly secure Cisco devices from unauthorized users. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.